Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, people. I've just realised it's quite dark standing here because there's a tall tree in front of me that's causing a shadow where I'm actually stood here, but no matter. It's still very sunny here, so as we walk around this place you'll still see brilliant bright sunlight. That rain, which was supposed to come down earlier today, hasn't materialised. It's always a good thing. So let's get cracking around this place. A couple of episodes ago we saw RAF Digby, which is actually within the parish of Scopwick. Well, this is the village to which, technically speaking, that RAF base belongs. This is the parish of Digby. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Digby, Ditch Farm. Hello again, North Kesteven, and welcome to another of your fabulous villages deep in the heart of rural Lincolnshire. Today we're exploring the parish of Digby, which gives its name to the RAF base we covered back in Scopwick. There are no RAF related features in this village though, despite its proximity to the base. Instead, I've always seen Digby as a typical North Kesteven village. That's just my opinion, but after watching this, you may think the same way. It has some normal run-of-the-mill features such as a church, a school, a chapel and whatnot, but it also does throw in a couple of unusual bits too. For the first time on the channel, we'll be setting foot on a Doorstep Green, a patch of ground created in 2001 by the Countryside Agency using funding from the National Lottery. We'll also be discussing a very oddly shaped structure opposite the church, which has divided local opinion for several centuries as to its actual purpose. The whole thing sits in the vale of the Digby Beck watercourse, 6 miles north of Sleaford and 12 south of Lincoln city centre. It's a village which has grown a little in recent times from an initial trifecta of streets which all converge at one central point marked by a tall buttercross and the Red Lion pub. So come with me for another peaceful stroll in a village in North Kesteven. It seems here in Digby to be a thing to name the public rights of way. We start our route on a snicket called Forget-Me-Not Way. Later on in the route we'll also be on Beer Lane and the Smoot, to name two others. A forget-me-not, of course, is a type of scorpion grass common in the fields around North Kesteven. The path leads to Church Street. This is one of the 3 primary streets in Digby which all converge on one another at a buttercross, the other 2 being Beck Street and North Street. It was along that trio where Digby grew from a possible pre-Viking settlement to what it is today. Our first major landmark is this peculiar looking structure. This is an old lockup, similar to ones we've seen before elsewhere, but shaped a little differently. Made of limestone ashlar, it's believed to be 17th century in origin. The reason it has its rather odd, rounded shape is because it was originally a well cover. This has led to a little bit of controversy as to whether it was ever used as a lockup or whether that's just an urban myth. One thing's for sure, you would be really cramped inside it. Just up the road is a second structure you can go into, but the phone box is much more welcoming. Both of those things stand opposite the church, and this one's dedicated to St Thomas a Becket, whose porch features some Saxon elements and carvings. Built in the Gothic style, St Thomas's is a Grade 1 listed building. The tall spire, reaching high into the Lincolnshire skies, was struck by lightning in August 1907, leading to repairs costing £80. Back in the 1930s, it was believed the churchyard was haunted, although by who or what is open to debate. There were no apparitions on this visit, but I did find something of note in here. The War Memorial, a simple cross listing a total of 25 names. The path at the side of the church is Beer Lane, likely a reference to funeral biers which would have frequented the church in Victorian times. By walking up this, we come to the school. A modest little building as educational establishments go, Digby C of E is one of the 3 small rural primary schools that comprise the Spires Federation. According to the Parish Council's website, this school has 88 pupils at present, and the school's logo, that would be the lockup. Beer Lane then becomes Chapel Path if you turn right. We find ourselves on North Street now and heading for the village centre. Here's the chapel that gives the path its name. It was a Wesleyan building, it was built in 1879 and closed in 2004. It was then sold in 2009. There's been a Methodist congregation in Digby since the early 19th century. The attached schoolroom behind it is of the same style as the chapel itself. Now we come to the village hall. To give this its official Sunday name, this is the Digby War Memorial Hall, and that's pretty self-explanatory. This has recently been refurbished, has wheelchair access, and has the capacity for 250 people. There's also a small committee room and a kitchen and a stage. The garden in front of it is illuminated in the evenings with multicoloured LEDs, representing searchlights used during World War II. The garden is directly opposite the one and only pub in the village, the Red Lion. This building dates back to the 1600s. A stone-built and whitewashed corner local, this one has both a comfortable front bar and a separate large dining room. It's situated on the junction where the 3 principal roads of the village meet, a spot marked by a medieval stone buttercross. The top section of the pillar and cross are not originals, they were renewed during Victorian times. Okay, so just in front of the pub and in front of the War Memorial Garden, we have a parish notice board, and I think you all know what that means by now. Just got to find a pin, a free pin. Sometimes it's difficult, to find a pin that's actually free on one of these when they're a pin board. But in this case, we have actually got one, and there we are. Digby is done. That's another one off the North Kesteven list. Brilliant. Now, at this point, near the cross, if you look directly over the road, you'll see an interesting little structure. There's plenty of these around Digby. There's some on the road to Ruskington, which I noticed earlier. I wonder what they are. I've got absolutely no idea. Let's find out. Well, unfortunately, I'm still none the wiser as to what this arch is for or what it represents. There are several of these on the road to Ruskington, through which can be seen the church at Dorrington. My best guess is there's something to do with the Spires and Steeples Heritage Trail, which runs straight through the village. Here's something else which runs right through the village too. This is the charming Digby Beck, which has the alternative name of Springwell Brook. Whatever you want to call it, it drains the local land, running east to an artificial channel that eventually empties into the River Witham. We are now on Beck Street, which takes its name from the watercourse. The vicarage overlooks the stream at this point. Beck Street is mainly residential, although there are some bits of evidence to suggest this would have once been a hive of activity. It's possible, via Google Street View, to see what this building once looked like. This used to be Digby's local shop and off-licence, and it also doubled as the post office. With no shop in the village these days, the nearest place with a general store is Ruskington. We've now rounded a bend, and we're about to pass through a much newer area. Here's the Herne, a new build cul-de-sac off Station Road. That's just the tip of the iceberg though. More brand new houses have been built around the Smoot in recent times, including Chestnut Close. It's through that we go next to find one of Digby's standout properties, and that's Manor Farmhouse. The facade of this building is a frontage which was built to impress. Its east wing houses the kitchen and predates the Georgian front. It's said to be haunted by two ghosts, one being a little girl, the other a black cat. Some say there's also a secret passage that ran from here to Catley Abbey too. Okay, even though that was all, generally speaking, residential, it has served a purpose. It's brought us back onto North Street, and we're now at the northern end of North Street. And what this is going to do now is going to take us onto Digby Doorstep Green. We're going to cross that across to the main road and complete the route, basically, because there's not a lot left. Just before we leave North Street behind, here's Thomas à Becket Close, named of course in reference to the church. Now at this point you'd be forgiven for thinking that North Street is the only way to continue the walk, but nearby you can follow a footpath that runs to the main sports ground. I suspect these are some sort of old industrial workings. There are patches of water here and there, hence the sight of life rings and signs that say deep water. If you can safely negotiate all of that, the path runs into a nice little clump of shady trees right on the edge of Digby Doorstep Green. The green covers a pretty large 1.6 acres. It's essentially the sports ground, but it caters for Digby's children in other ways, thanks to a large playground and for the likes of dog walkers and runners too. By the way, a doorstep green is defined as a locally owned public space. They were first created by the Countryside Agency in 2001, who provided grants of between £10,000 and £150,000 to a total of 200 communities. The majority of the funding came from what we now know as the Big Lottery Fund. Here in Digby, the Doorstep Green features the local bowls club as well as a football pitch. Okay, we've reached the main road. Behind me, that's the road to Scopwick and to Rowstone and to Medringham and all those places. And the other way, that is the road to Ruskington and to Sleaford. And I'm parked in the Pinfold, which is just off this road to the left. And that's it. Fantastic. What a great walk around Digby. Lovely little place this. Not quite finished with it yet though. There's one more thing I do want to talk about, and that's the old railway station, but we can do that on the way to the next village. Now, as a proud Lincolnshire boy, there was no way I was going to leave it there without a battle in my head. I opted to capture some of the scenery you see from the Lincoln Road just to round things off fully. This isn't the Wolds, it's North Kesteven, so it's bang flat Fenland, but it's just as beautiful and you won't change my mind. If you want to visit Digby, you can get a bus to it at this point. The village is served by the numbers 31 and 31X primarily between Lincoln and Sleaford. There's a sister stop to that one over the road at the Pinfold, where this walk finally comes to a close. But we ain't done. Our last job is to head up Station Road towards the site of the old Digby railway station, which used to serve the village on the Peterborough to Lincoln line. It was only ever a minor station, opening in 1882 and closing in 1961. Facilities for freight traffic lasted an extra 3 years. Now the station house is privately owned, but the line of course remains open. A company called KAD Fiberglass can be found along here these days. And that's a wrap folks. Digby is in the books. Next we're off deeper into the fens again, and in the next episode we're going to a place which until now I'd never been to. It threw up a few surprises, let me tell you. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching this video folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.